that the level of inequality that is being generated in India is not acceptable. That 2 or 3 business houses control the entire infrastructure. The agencies are used to help them knock out other business people. That 200 plus million people have gone into poverty over the last 9 years. That we face continuous price rise, not acceptable. That government needs to spend much more money on healthcare and education and needs to be involved in that. We will reclaim the democratic tradition in India. And we will go back to institutions that are neutral. We will go back to institutions that do not belong to a particular party or a particular ideology, but we'll go back to institutions that belong to the people of India.
How do you do that?
We do that by making sure that they are not pressurized, that people who run these institutions are not threatened, that they're not attacked, and that they're allowed to do their job. Right? The institutions belong to the people of India, and institutions are there to be neutral. They don't belong to a political party. So the moment we stop trying to shape the behavior of the institutions like the RSS and BJP do, they go back to work. Right? So that's one piece of it. The second part, which is a challenge in some ways for Europe and the United States, as well as India, is the fact that if we look at the planet today, we look at this microphone, we look at my phone, we look at this computer, we see that they are mostly made in China. And clearly, without any doubt, the Chinese have proven to the entire planet that they can produce successfully, they can manufacture better than anybody else. But they do so in a coercive, non-democratic environment. This they have proven to everybody. They have essentially dismantled the production networks of the United States, the production networks of Europe, and also to a great extent the production networks of India by successfully doing this. For us to not manufacture, to not produce a country of 1.4 billion people is not an option. We will have such massive levels of unemployment and anger that as a nation we will not be sustainable. So China has placed a vision on the table. It is called the Belt and Road. The heart of that vision is production, dominance of global production. We are asking the question, can we place an alternative vision on the table? A vision where India, the United States, Europe work together to produce, not in a coercive environment, not in an environment where you do not give political freedom to your people, but in an environment where you give political freedom, economic freedom, social freedom to your people. So this to me is the central challenge facing not just India, Europe, United States. I think it will impact all the students in this room. If we are unsuccessful, I think the students in this room will find that their future will not be as bright as it should be. So that would be the centerpiece of the type of work that we would want to do. Now that has a number of components. It requires infrastructure. It requires a different type of education system. It requires protection for our people. So that would be the central piece, and then you would have structures that would support that. The final thing that I personally think is very important is that there are very, very large groups, large parts of India that are not included in the growth and the success of India. When you look at India from outside as a Western person, you see tremendous success, tremendous growth. But when you look at it from inside India, you see that people from lower caste communities, people from tribal communities, people from minority communities, people from Dalit communities are not part of that. They're simply excluded from that group. And that is something that India will never ever be successful without something. So, much greater inclusion. Inclusion not only in terms of economic growth, in terms of wealth, but in terms of social respect, in terms of protection. So that would be overall how we would think about it. What would we keep that the BJP has done? What would we not differ with them on? Probably some of the work that they've done in infrastructure. I think that would be the mainstay of it. We do not agree with what they've done to the education system. They have tried to erase history, so I cannot say that we agree with them on that. Some of the work they've done in healthcare, probably we would agree with. The broad direction of our economy, the broad direction of our relationship with the United States, relationship with Europe, probably agree with. Similar.
Including war in Ukraine stance.
We would agree with their stance on the war in Ukraine. Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
You don't want to come over to our side.
It's not, see, the thing is, it's not come over to your side or come over to their side. We are completely against the violence and the pain that is being felt by the Ukrainian people and by the Russians who are dying in Ukraine. And we think it should stop. And we understand that in the 21st century, having a war in the middle of Europe is not a good idea, it's dangerous for Europe, it's dangerous for us, it's dangerous for everyone. But as a large country, we have relationships with multiple people. We cannot ignore the fact that we have a relationship with the United States, we have a relationship with Europe, we have a relationship with Russia, we have a relationship with Iran. These are things that large countries, by their very nature, have to have. Right? And you can shape them, but you are also limited by them.
There are 3 questions that have been sent by my colleague. You've answered some of them already, I think. So I'll just sort of quickly recap them for you, so you can sort of decide if you want to elaborate. One deals with public health. It's been largely sidelined by Indian politics for a very long time, and it's underfunded. Second question is strategies. Sorry, you've answered that. Okay.
Should I just take the first question quickly?
Okay, yes.
Quick. So, when you look at India, one frame is you look at the whole of India, and the other frame is you look at different states in the union. So, some of the most cutting edge work in healthcare is being done in Rajasthan. And those are some of the principles that we're going to use. For us, Rajasthan is a pilot. And if we do come to power, we will use some of those principles and spread them across the country. It's true that both healthcare and education have not received the type of funding they should get. And we're pretty firm on the idea that the government needs to be aggressively involved in education and in healthcare and should spend much more money in both these areas. Not allowing religious freedom in India fundamentally weakens India. And if you think that India should be weakened, we don't agree with it. So for us, it is very important that all people from India are allowed to follow their religion, are allowed to express themselves. Minorities, lower castes, Dalits, tribals, everybody is a part of India. And everybody should be allowed to thrive, to have an imagination. And if you subvert anybody, if you crush anybody's imagination, you're damaging the country. And we don't appreciate people who damage the country.
I just spent a few days in.
But the thing is, you don't have the liberty to do this with the Prime Minister of India.
Okay, but I'll have an interesting question for you, possibly, because I just spent a few days in Sweden, and part of a sort of a TV debate there, the question was raised: is India still a democracy? And there were 3 in the panel. 2 said yes, 1 said no. So it's fine. I don't know. What is your take on that? Is India still a democracy, or is it turning into something else? That's one question, and you can mull on that while I ask my second question, which is very short. Why Norway? Why are you spending time with us? This is tiny little country. It's smaller than Bourbon district.
So I was, there is Uttar Pradesh in India. Hundreds of millions of people. And then there are states like Meghalaya in India. Not many people. But both the voices are equally important. The nature of it is that it doesn't matter how many people live in Norway and that you're a small population. You might have some very innovative ideas. You might have some very interesting things coming out of a small population. So why should we forego that? And second, I think, at least from my perspective, there's a lot we can learn from you. I really appreciate the way you manage your resources. I would like to understand better how you've done such a tremendous job, how you've built your sovereign fund. Right? You've done some excellent work in mobility. I'd like to get a sense of what that is. And I'd also like to help you understand some of the difficulties that we are facing, some of the interesting things that we are thinking about. So, conversations are a good thing. And you have good food here. Is India still a democracy? India's democracy is under severe assault and attack. India is also defending its democracy. It's a difficult job, but it's doing so. When that defense stops, if it stops, then I will say India is not a democracy anymore. But there are still many, many people who are contesting the attack on the democratic struggle. So I cannot say the fight is over. I think we're going to win the fight. I view this as a transition. Both India and China have or are trying to manage the largest migration of people from rural areas to urban areas in history. It's the biggest migration ever. Now, so to think that this is going to happen without any turbulence, without any pressure, that's naive, right? So, a lot of these pressures, turbulences, structural problems are coming because of this massive transition that we are going through. And it's expected. What will come out at the end of it? Will we be able to give India a democratic, plural vision? Will we be able to hold the structure together? Will we be able to thrive? That's really the question. We are very clear that India's diversity, the different languages, the different states, different cultures, will simply not absorb what the RSS is trying to place on top. We do not think that India can survive a centralization of power the way the BJP is doing. And that's why we're defending it. And we also understand that India has an important role because of its size, because of its scale internationally. And it has certain responsibilities. Indian democracy, in my view, is a global public good. It doesn't just belong to India. It is something that will affect the entire planet. Imagine if 3 Europes suddenly went autocratic. That's the scale of India. So it's important that we defend it. It's our responsibility. We're doing it. But it's important that the rest of the world knows what's going on back home.
We're running out of time. Actually, we're past whatever time limit is set. So anyway, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
I've noticed two things that I have to say here. One is I love the format you've used. I've never used this format before, and I think it's a wonderful format, standing and chatting like this. And the second thing I've noticed, which says a lot about Norway, is that I've not met a Norwegian woman who doesn't shake hands firmly. Which tells me that they're doing very well, and they're playing a very important role in society, and they're emancipated. So that's a very nice feeling. Thank you. This. Before our yatra, in Indian politics, nobody ever used this language. Nobody ever said, I love you, right? And I think it's very, very important that in times of hatred, where everybody is saying, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I think it's very important that this language is used. Because this is the language that counters the hatred, the anger in society. Thank you.